After you have installed Punch, it will appear as virtual instrument inside your music host program. First part you need to visit is the section where you can find all presets and banks. Also, the manual can be opened if you press the Help button. There are many ways to select these presets. You can do it the classic way by using the up and down arrow in the preset part for selecting the preset, and by using the up and down arrow at the bank part for selecting the bank. But just like our other plugins, we have also here the quick browser. It opens if you click the mouse button while being over the preset name. With the quick browse, you can go through all the banks and presets. This also memorizes the last 8 presets you have selected. This is great if you search for the right preset and suddenly found out that one of the presets you have heard before was the right one. You can even place presets you like into the temporary favorite list. The quick browser is an essential tool for saving time while making music. The user interface of Punch is very friendly. Let's check it out. In the upper section, you already saw this preset and bank part. But to the right of it, you can see a readout field. If I go above a knob or a parameter, it shows the name of the parameter and its setting. Even more to the right, you can see Edit and Original. This button you can press if you edit your sound. Then we have here also ECS, which stands for Easy Controller Setup. If you make your own setup in using external MIDI controllers, you can save it to disk. Then we have the Help function here, which opens the manual, and the volume knob. If you click on the Punch logo, the back panel opens. There is information about how to use the controls, but also you can put on or off the computer keyboard up-down for changing the preset. If you click back on the Punch logo again, you're back to the front page. Next part of Punch are where you control the drum sounds, of course. There's a middle section, which you can see here, a section where you select your drum sounds, which is here, and a sequencer groove part, which is here. But let's start in the more middle section. The first page you can click is the Easy page. As you can see, it has many faders. The first one, for instance, controls the pitch of the synth engines inside of it, so the pitch of all the synth drum modules, and this in one go. And if you press the center button, it jumps back to the center position. It is a very creative part of Punch, and you can change the presets in a very creative way, and it becomes even cooler if you address a MIDI controller to the faders. And this is simply done by going to the fader, use the right mouse button and say Latch to MIDI. Of course, you can record these controllers into your sequencer, your music program host. The settings of the Easy page are stored in the preset, so if you have a nice setting, rename the preset and save this preset to disk. An example you can find in Dance Bank 1, and preset 19 is a variation of this preset number 18. Next to the Easy page, we have pads, and that is the section where you control the drum sounds. And this works together, of course, with the drum pads you can see down here. Bass drum 1, bass drum 2. And if you click on one of the particular drum sounds, you can audition them. But if you put on Dynamic Select, it's also selected in the screen above, so that you can change and edit the sound. Another way to select your sound, your drum sound, is by clicking on this little LED. That's also a way to select a drum sound. This part of Punch is heavily featured. The drum sounds you can make in several ways. The first 16 pads use synthesis and built-in samples. The other 8 pads or drum sounds, sample 1 until 8, use samples only. Okay, let's take as an example, for instance, the bass drum. Bass drum 1, you can see, has a menu structure here, and there you can select the model. Model 1 until 4 are synthesized bass drum models. If you go to the classic ones, we have built in a few analog classic drum machines, but these are pure samples. And we build in punch samples, which are samples from my own collection. The 16 synthesis drum modules or drum pads have also a quick edit. These are 4 knobs, which makes that you are able to change the sound very fast without diving too deep in the synthesis. And that's another cool thing for each pad sound, so for the bass drum, the clap, and also for the sample pads, and that is the preset section. Each drum pad has its own preset collection. So if you go more to the right, you can see here a preset name. So I can select this up and down to pick one of the built-in presets, for instance for the bass drum. Or for the clap. Or in the sample section for the built-in samples. So this is very handy if you want to make your own drum kit. Next to the pads we have Mixer. And here you control all instruments in one go, the panning and the volume. But also the FX send can be controlled here, or you can bypass them, put them on or off. Next to the mixer we have the modulation and FX selection. So if you click here, the free modulation page opens with 2 envelopes and 2 LFOs and the modulation matrix, which you can address to several parts inside Punch, or for instance to the FX section, because here we have a source and a destination, so you can modulate also the FX inside Punch. By the way, the FX section with 4 FX is most of the time visible. Only if you have one of the sample pads selected, it disappears. But if you click the Modulation FX button, it's there again. Inside the FX section, we have different types of effects. Included a new high Q reverb, which is a little sister of our own RP verb, but also a filter, which is the same filter we use, for instance, in Predator or in Sub-Boom Bass. Next to the Modulation FX button, you will find the Manager. And there we have the Bank Manager for the patterns of the grooves, but also for the banks and the presets. If you click Close, you are back to the main page. Before I show you how the sequencer and the grooves work, let's go back to the sample pads. These 8 sample pads use samples only. And as you can see, it's heavily featured. On the left section you can see a kind of browser. This is where you can select the installed samples. And everything that starts with folder name 1 are factory installed samples. If you want to load in your own samples, it is wise to pick number 2, User, so double-click it. And as you can see, we already prepared folder names for you. All is empty right now, but it helps to keep overview for yourself. So for instance, if you have a drum loop, double-click the drum loop folder, Then go to the menu, Import Sample. This way, it imports on the right spot and it doesn't clutter your sample folder. Okay, now back to the other part. We had already explained that this here is where you select your drum sounds. To the right of it, you can see the sequencer. And a sequencer fires a groove the moment you hit a key. Inside Punch, we arrange it this way. From note C1, it starts for playing the single drum sounds until B2. If you hit note C3, groove 1 starts to play. If you press D3, groove 2 starts to play. If you press E3, groove 3 starts to play. If you press F3, groove 4 starts to play. And if you press, for instance, G3, the break 4 starts to play. The notes C cross 3, D cross 3, and F cross 3 play break 1, break 2, and break 3. You're totally free for yourself what to do with these grooves or with the breaks. Inside the factory presets, what we did in most cases is that if you play groove 1 until 4 and also hit break 4, so essentially notes C3 until G3, that you will hear a complete groove. But what you can do is adding also one of the breaks or let go one of the other notes, and this way you can build up completely a groove and build up a song. Of course, this is very different of what you are used to. So now by simply hitting the note, you fire a groove or a break. And it's up to you what to do with it. And note that each groove can have 4 tracks or 4 instruments. But it's up to you how to use them. By the way, while playing the grooves or breaks, you still can use the other notes and combine it. Okay, maybe you might think, what is this different from playing a MIDI file? Well, one thing what is different is that you can time it more spontaneously. You just simply hit the note and add a groove to it. And sometimes you time also on a different spot. So instead of starting at the first beat, you could start at the second or the third beat. But maybe most important are the features inside these sequencers. If you go to the track, you can see that we have an option to pan the instrument per step. Or change the tuning per step. Or change the envelope speed of the sound. These things are, of course, harder to achieve with MIDI files. So the grooves and breaks inside Punch are also a sound sculpting tool. If you can see a beats per minute value inside the preset name, you can be sure that grooves and breaks are added. Of course, you can change the beats per minute, and it's purely an advised tempo for the grooves and drum presets in this preset.